Hi everyone, I keep getting a lot of questions about how to farm those Nightmare Dungeon strong rooms the best way possible. So I want to give you some tips in order to fill the bar every single time. This is what I can do consistently with basically any of my builds, even when they're not like the super fastest, craziest blaster build out there or so, and it has been working pretty well. So I don't have the full list of everything, but I can just give you the general idea of what I'm going for. So what you care about is the pillar speed, more monsters, and more attunement most of the time. And so for example, here you see right now this choice is a very good one because it just speeds up the progress of finishing those events and then going to the next one as you go through the strong room. So this is something I usually choose. There's also here the special demon. So this spawns the Astaroth doggy. This is like a big chunk, gives you like something like a full bar or so on by itself. This is usually kind of nice. But beware, it might be a bit dangerous if you're undergeared or so, but I like taking that one as well. And then you want to have one of those objectives that you carry around and then get extra attunement, or something like this here, where I get like a debuff when you click shrines and then you get more attunement as well. So these things can also stack. You can't carry multiple of those, objects around. If there's like one where you can't evade and there's one where you can't use potion, but if you're kind of careful about that, then it's easy to carry this, but you get a 25% bonus. So this makes it very easy to full clear the strong room and get the full attunement. And the good part is if you clear it early and you get the full bar, then the boss immediately spawns. So you don't have to wait the full 100 seconds for that. So usually you want to try to get like one or two of those attunement buffs as well. Either like flat numbers buffs, like there's like certain monsters that give you like more when they're like close to the shrine or something like that. Or you have something like this where you have a straight 25% buff basically all the time. Here's a second example of me clearing a strong room and the choices that I make. So I'm just going to show this as well. So you get the options here. And for example, here I choose this idol where I can't evade. But this does work with the jar rune, so you can actually teleport. That's kind of nice. Then you have, for example, this here, which is also really nice, a pillar speed, but monsters are more healthy. But if you're blasting for everything anyway, I would choose something like that. This is a very good one. Has a large downside, but the downside can be completely negated if you're too powerful, basically. So I like that. And then usually just try to get something else here. There's, for example, this here, the pillars tether nearby enemies. This is a plus attunement. So whenever you do these little events on the pillars, you just get more stuff. There's also other things like this, for example, here, the apparitions or the wisps that it can catch and these kind of things. I did find those to be relatively like whatever. So maybe if you're like kind of slow and undergeared, then this would make some sense. But I feel like if you're just kind of blasting through the room, you don't really care. And you don't want to like bother with like going out of your way to catch them and bring them there or something like that. And here's a third example of me clearing a room. So again, we have a few of those options here. So here's another thing. Kill the tethered enemies to complete a ritual, the pillar ritual mutation. I also pick that very often because I think it just speeds up how fast you can complete the ritual. So you click the thing and then you don't have to wait that long. You can just move on faster. So I usually take that as well. Then again, you have something like a flat attunement buff. So this is kind of nice. And then also the additional ambush, just more monsters means more attunement. So you kind of go through the room more quickly. And now just as an example how I clear those rooms here, this is pretty straightforward. So you have two different things you can click, which are the pillars. So they give you like the attunement buff. When you complete them for 15 seconds, you get more attunement. So then you want to try to either find a shrine, which spawns these portals and a lot of monsters, or you find another pillar that gives you more of this buff. The buff's duration doesn't stack, so it doesn't refresh the timer, but I think the horaric attunement buff that you get and how much you get does overlap. So if you do like one pillar, you can go for the second pillar right away, but then the first one will drop eventually, and then the second buff will drop eventually, basically. But effectively, you just want to try to avoid going through like empty stretches of no events while you're in the room. And those pillars actually reset after a little time. I'm not exactly sure how long, but you can effectively do like a little circle with like, 3 pillars and kind of just go back and forth between them if you want. And like this, you always keep up this buff. And you see here the attunement bar fills up pretty quickly and easily like this. So don't just like walk around and just kill all the monsters. You want to try to get the pillars. And once you have a pillar buff, you want to do a shrine if it's nearby, or just do more of the pillars basically. And also some notes about Astaroth. I hear people having a lot of issues sometimes because it's a pretty tough boss fight and they look for people to carry them suddenly and so on. He seems to be somewhere on the level of lair bosses in terms of difficulty. It can be a bit more, a bit less, depending on how the affixes land. But if you can do lair bosses of the same difficulty, then you can also do Astaroth, basically. He seems to like hurt a little bit less than most of those lair bosses with their big one-shots, for example. So he seems not as threatening, but he is definitely quite beefy. So you want to have some damage. So you can always just test yourself against something like Varshan, see how that goes, and then if that is fine, then you can also go here and do escalation sigils. But for example, when I was still not really fully decked out, I was able to farm Torment 4 just fine, but I did my escalation sigils on Torment 3, for example, just to be on the safe side, at least for hardcore. And otherwise, you know, you don't want to run into the Astaroth fight and, you know, fight him for 10 minutes or something like that, just because you were a bit too optimistic. So again, just always try it first against some of the other bosses, and then you get a bit of an understanding of how is your DPS and how quickly you can take him down. But Astaroth is quite rewarding, so it's definitely worth farming those escalation sigils. By now, I basically never do normal Nightmare Dungeon sigils at all. I only do escalation sigils when I farm Nightmare Dungeons, and I do that on Torment 4, no problem. And that's about it for this video here. Hope this helps you out to get a bit of an idea of what I'm going for with my Strongroom runs and my Nightmare Dungeon runs. So let me know what you think. Let me know if there's some other like bonuses, for example, that I didn't talk about now that are really important. But other than that, hope everyone is enjoying the season, and see you guys next time.